Good day everyone. Today I will discuss about pickling and food preservation. Pickling is defined as a process of preserving a food by either anaerobic fermentation in brine or immersion in vinegar. The resulting food is called a pickle. Example of pickling: some of the more popular pickle foods include pickles, sauerkraut, green olives. These three examples cover the range of method used to provide acidic pickling brine. In the case of cucumber, vinegar or acetic acid is usually added to provide all or most of the necessary acidity. So pickling can add a special flavor to food by themselves or mix in with other food. As you can see in the picture beside, these are example of pickled foods. History of pickling. Pickling began 4,000 years ago using cucumber native to India. Pickling was used as a way to preserve food for out of season use and for long journeys, especially by sea. History, Historically, the process of pickling was necessity and invaluable way to preserve food for sailors and travelers. It provided families with food through the colder months. The term pickle is derived from the Dutch word pekel, meaning brine. The word pickle comes from the Dutch pekel or Northern German packel, meaning salt or brine. Two very important components in the pickling process. Pickling is the process of preserving food by anaerobic fermentation in brine or vinegar. Unlike the canning process, pickling does not require that the food be completely sterile before it is sealed. In the US and Canada, the word pickle alone almost always refers to a pickled cucumber. However, plenty of other vegetables like green beans also make delicious pickles. Cucumber originate in India over 4,000 years ago and slowly made their way to the Middle East, Europe, and eventually in the North America. Methods of pickling. First is fill a large pot with hot water. If you have canning pot with fitted rack, use it, or you can hack it with a large stock pot. You will also need something to lift the glass canning jars off the bottom of the pot. You could use a round metal cooling rack if you have that fits in your stock pot. Second is submerge canning jars in the hot water and bring to a boil. You can use either 2 quarts size jars or 4 pint size jars. Also, you can double the recipe to make 4 quarts jars or 8 pint jars if you like. Third is gather and trim the cucumber, which are firmer, more flavorful, and less seedy than typically full-length cucumbers. Since the end of the cucumbers can be bitter, trim both the blossoms and the stem end of each cuke. Fourth is make the pickled brine. Combine 2 cups white vinegar, 2 cups water, and 2 cups tablespoon of salt and bring to a boil. It is important to use salt because salt often contains anti-caking agents which can turn pickled brine cloudy and produce off flavors. Next is remove jars from the hot water. Before lifting, sanitize jars from the water. Make sure you know where they're going. Never place a hot glass directly on a cold stone surface. Instead, place the empty jars on the wooden cutting board or something woody. Next is fill jars with pickled ingredients. For pint and quart jars, the ingredients were the same. Add 1 peeled garlic clover and 3 to 4 fresh dill spring to each jars. But the amount of the ingredients were different because of the size of the jars, and it should be different. Next is add extra spices. Well, this is not necessary. If you want to add, you can add, but if you don't like spicy food, you can also you can also not put it. For add extra spices, feel free to play around with spices mix here. While this recipe keeps it simple, you can add any combination: coriander, caraway, cumin, mustard seeds, cloves, black peppercorns, and allspice berries. Do keep the spice whole since ground spices can make the brine cloudy and pickled gritty. Place vacuum lids on jars. You must you must use a new lid every time. Screw rings may be reused, but the vacuum lids are one time use deal. Some recipes recommend soaking the lids in the boiling water to sanitize, but many manufacturers recommend skipping these steps since it can adversely affect the lid's ability to seal. Next is seal the jars and arrange in a pot. During the boiling process, airs need to be able to escape from the jars. Submerge sealed jars into the conner. If necessary, add water to the pot so that it is at least 1 inch higher than the top of the jars. Next is mm, next is process the jar. Process the jar pickled. This doesn't have a vigorous boil, just steady is fine. Remove pot from the heat and let it cool for 5 minutes. Next is let cool, then test the seal. Let the pickle jars at room temperature for a full 24 hours, then check the seal on the lid. If you press the center of the lid and it pops up and down, the jar is not sealed, and you should store the pickles in the refrigerator and eat them within a few weeks. Next is last is label and store your jars. Mark the jars, noting what kind of pickle you made and the date. Store them in a cool, dark place for up 1 year. If you notice the garlic cloves turning blue or green, it is a natural reaction between the acid in the brine and the enzymes in the garlic. The coloration won't affect the flavor or safety of your pickles. So that's all. Thank you.